very honored to be here with you all today for the presentation of my little book. It's a little book because I've been encouraged by a number of my friends to write a follow-up. Not necessarily a second book, but a second story. This is actually a story. And you know, you don't finish telling stories as long as you are alive. You continue to tell more and more stories. Africa Rise and Shine. Many people have always wondered, particularly the media that had spoken to me and interviewed me, and the local media, international media, channels, TV, Arise TV, other media houses had often asked me, how did I come about that title, Africa Rise and Shine? And it was very easy for me. Africa Rising and Africa Shining. The narrative of Africa had been something that had been so pathetic. As one of the speakers did speak with regard to Africa being a dark continent. Really, that was the chairman of the occasion, who narrated that during his time or his days, Africa had often been described as a dark continent. And on my own part, when you Google Africa, the first description, or maybe the first 10 results you get in Google is a continent of conflicts, a continent of corruption, a continent of coups, the 3 C's: coups, corruption, and conflicts. And that was played out very dramatically about in 2004, thereabout, 2001 actually, when the Economist magazine had on their front cover page, after coup had occurred in 1 or 2 African countries in 1984, it was December. And the next edition of the magazine, Economist, which we all know so well, was that Africa, in fact, the heading was Africa, continent of coups, continent of corruption, continent of conflicts, hunger, and so on and so forth. But after several years, 2 decades thereabout, that narrative started to change. Even though in some cases, even when you Google, it will still show you so many negative stories about Africa. And I thought we have to change that narrative. And today, we now know that Africa is truly rising. Some had asked me, what do I mean Africa is rising? How has it risen? Risen from where? Risen from being a dark continent, no longer a dark continent? I said yes, and I could easily prove it. Between then and now, what you now have is per capita income, GDP per capita, of many African countries is well above 1,000 US dollars. Whereas about 20 years ago, per capita GDP income was below $500 for more than 50% of African countries. So for me, Africa is rising. And 20, 50, 30 years ago, only few African countries had mobile phones. But today, all African countries, without exception, now not only they have mobile phones, they also have broadband technology. Internet penetration is high. Internet penetration is probably about 20, 30% for many African countries. Africa is rising. If Africa is embracing technology, new economy, information age, the same way as US, the same way as UK, and so many other European countries, there's no better definition that Africa truly is rising. Now, more importantly, 2 years ago, in 2016, more than 50% of African nations, to be precise, about 25, 26 African countries, held democratically elected governments. More than 50% held democratically elected government. And today, the record shows that there's no single African country that is being ruled by any military. They are no longer ruled by soldiers. None. I thought, yes, we need to clap for Africa in that regard. It's true, so you can check it out. So how else can you describe a situation of hopelessness, coups, corruptions, and conflicts 20, 30 years ago till today? You have proper democratically elected government. Is Africa rising? So these are great indicators to show that Africa truly is rising. And if you also look at the fact that 20, 30 years ago, maybe only 1 or 2 African countries were listed in London Stock Exchange. But now you have African countries listed in London Stock Exchange. So truly, Africa is rising. Africa is rising. So it's in that regard that I had personally thought we should be able to rebrand Africa. Africa Rising, that's how we came up with the name. The narrative has been changing, and it will continue to change.